Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Anthony, aka Burnt Banksy. He really rose to fame when he actually bought a Banksy art piece and burnt it and converted it into an NFT. Currently, he's working on XION blockchain. The idea is to make crypto and Web3 accessible to the end user in the greatest way possible, the most beautiful way possible, perhaps, wherein they don't even need to really understand how the technology works. So, this is something that's very close to my heart as well. This was a very interesting conversation. So, let's deep dive right in. Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is all mine, and I'm so glad we could schedule this considering we are in completely different time zones. But for our listeners, I'm sure that they know and they have a lot of context with your pseudonym, Burnt Banksy. But I would love for you to give a bit of a background about yourself and how you got into Web3, just to give this conversation a little more context.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the background of my name is Burnt Banksy. And the reason I got that name about 3 years ago, I bought a Banksy art piece from a gallery. I'm in New York, obviously, hence the large time zone difference. But and we lit it on fire and sold the we sold the digital as an NFT, which ended up being the highest average price sale on OpenSea for
Hmm.
most of 2021. Kind of gotten global recognition and then still in the Wikipedia for the word NFT to this day.
Wow, that's wonderful. I remember reading about this and I was thinking, this is such mad lad behavior, but I love it. But
Yeah,
what
I mean
kind of,
that was
yeah, but what led you? Like, what was the thinking behind that?
well, there's two schools of thought here.
Hmm.
One of them is like, this is fun. I want to do this. So that's one of them. And then the other
Right.
one was like, obviously, because who doesn't want to light art on fire? I feel like that's every child's dream in some capacity. That or I'm just a pyromaniac. But I think more deep and more kind of serious on that note. We I'd been in crypto for many years before.
Hmm.
And this was at that point where you could have like many crypto punks, and that really wasn't that big of a deal.
Hmm.
Crypto Kitties was just kind of the biggest NFT collection.
Right.
And so I used to have a ton. And all my friends outside of crypto and family always to me were saying, if they would always make fun of me. If it wasn't,
Hmm.
you'd always hear the same thing every time. If it's not in my living room, if I can't see it, it's not art. And I said, okay, well, and there's no value to it. So I said, all right, well, let
Hmm.
me take something that quote unquote has value to it, right? Which was this Banksy, sold at Sotheby's auction, which is, I would like to think of a auction house, and light it on fire and turn it into an NFT, and let's see if it has value, and I think it will, and it did. Suffice to say, anyone wants to put a price tag on value.
Hmm.
But what we kind of really wanted to get out of that was just kind of proverbially spark the conversation. Um, and so we did, right? And I think we had no expectations that NFTs would be where they are now, but how quickly that kind of concept really took over. Because I think 3 weeks after we did it was the Beeple $69 million auction. And then everything really started steamrolling from there. And it was the start of something awesome. That's
Yeah.
why we're still here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably an inflection point, that the entire market saw in terms of
Mhm.
art collectibles and how they perceived NFTs. So that kind of did change. And I think your reasoning for doing something like this is so apt, right? You at times you really need to get people's attention to make them understand something. You need to do something a little outlandish.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what you did. And you kind of got and achieved what you perhaps had in mind.
Yep.
So
Yeah, exactly.
tell us a little about perhaps before that incident. You mentioned that you had been in crypto before. So how did you get into Web3 and crypto? And what were you doing back then?
Yeah, I mean, back then it was I got in through mining, and so I was here in New York during the time,
Right.
and I'll always say, especially if you look at it now, you really have this interesting break in America, which is SF and West Coast seems to be focused on AI, but New York is where crypto is, and it always has been. And so being in New York in
Hmm.
2016, you had Consensus, you had Uniswap, you had pretty much like everything really, really starting here. Which was the most exciting thing, especially for someone to just kind of be learning about something new, right? And so suffice to say, it was impossible to not start getting into crypto. And I started by being just a miner back when Ethereum was proof of work. And one thing ended up leading to another, and it was I couldn't leave. Effectively,
Yeah.
what ended up happening.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. It's like a rabbit hole once you go down it. And you mentioned that, you started with mining, and that's pretty much how I got into the space as well. And I started even
Mhm.
earlier when even Ethereum was not a thing. So, this is sometime in 2011, 12, and we were mining stuff like Zcash. And
Yep.
it was
Had Zaya
those.
coin or Saya coin.
Yeah, yeah. So that was like those early days. And because I think, you come in because you're curious for the technology. At that point, yes, it was curiosity and,
Yeah.
just the allure of being able to mine some money on your own. That
It was
was the allure
crazy.
of,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, you kind of stay for the technology, I think, and just the ethos of the space.
I was gonna say, and the people too. I really,
Yeah.
this is one of those industries that's just absolutely, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Just where you have a really concentrated group of people with very similar ethoses, wanting to spread
Hmm.
very similar messages and wanting to maintain, specific values. And I think you can't. There's not a lot of places. Maybe it's the size of the industry being what it is, but I think the capacity for everyone to be at least somewhat on the same page. Of course, you're gonna have some actors that are not great.
Hmm.
Is beautiful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no industry like Web3, because as you mentioned, people become like the backbone. I think this is one of the more helpful industries that you can be a part of, where
Hmm.
if you reach out to somebody, you will hear back, and they would be happy
Absolutely.
to lend you a hand, and just because
At
everybody's
any
so
size
excited.
too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's just so excited to it's like we are running a cult. We just get excited that
Uh,
somebody else wants to know about it
yeah.
and learn
Yeah,
and join.
absolutely.
It's probably not the best analogy, but it feels a
Well,
lot
no, it's
like
funny
that.
because we actually call our community a cult.
Yeah.
And so if you look at our Twitter, that we're hiring for two job positions right now. We're
Hmm.
hiring for a cult leader, because it's
Excellent.
exhausting, quite frankly,
Yeah, it is.
and a propaganda specialist.
Wow. Very nice. Scandalous.
So
But
I definitely agree with that logic that crypto is a cult because I
yeah,
love it.
it's to quite a large degree, I think. And all of us just, the builders in the space, I think we all love the technology, the ethos, and everything. And we're just more excited to have more people come along this journey because somehow we truly do believe that this is going to be a major part of the future that we are heading towards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's nice to be able to like talk to people that you work with and understand
Hmm.
the same goal. And I think you look at narratives in the space and you look at what a narrative is. It kind of feels like a North Star effect, but
Hmm.
you definitely have different people looking at different opportunities to try to actually build towards that. And I think that's something extremely exciting too, because we're so new into this that there are no right answers yet. And whatever
Exactly.
whatever is written ends up being what you wrote. I don't mean obviously, but
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I totally get it. I think the space is very, very dynamic. And this is exactly what I think, tweeted yesterday or today, sometime on X, that there are no experts in the space. The space is way too dynamic for anybody to call themselves an
mhm.
expert. Everything keeps changing. Every day you get up and there is like a ton of new things that have happened and that you have to catch up with. And that is
Yeah.
what makes it even more exciting to be building in this space.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's just so much innovation and things happen, since it's 24/7, you have lessons learned in the traditional markets that end up that end up effectively happening at like 10x the speed. You have
Yeah.
these high highs and these super lows, but it's extremely interesting as it's extremely interesting as we kind of progress where you see things rise and fall so quickly and lessons are learned even quicker.
Right, yeah. So the people who do well here, I think they need to learn and unlearn very quickly, and that I think also keeps you a little young and at the edge of your
You need to be a
seat.
little crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's one way of putting it. I agree. I think you need to be a little bit of an adrenaline junkie and a little bit mad,
to stay in the
Yes.
space and, cycle after cycle, heartbreak after heartbreak. But, you just sort of come in and you stay for the tech. So, on that note, I would love to know a lot more about what you're building currently. You have a mission as well, but the
Yep.
burnt mission as well as a chain. So could you give us a little macro overview and then we can get into the details?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the idea kind of stemming off of the burnt Banksy was normal people should be able to benefit with crypto. And I think what we're working on with Zion, the easiest way to say our main goal is we're trying to make crypto disappear. Very short and sweet. We don't believe that the barriers of entry need to be here, and I think they're only hindering the industry. And so we're on a mission. We've been building for some odd 2.5 years on Zion specifically in order to break down these barriers of entry. And so it's actually really exciting. Our testnet is live and we have at about 3 million accounts, 3 million unique users, I should say.
Wow.
And about 40 million transactions, whether that be projects deployed with us or kind of what we're pioneering with our chain abstraction. I think it's interesting as you look at our North Star being, Web 2 should be synonymous with Web 3, and there shouldn't be this like other land.
Yeah, I think that kind of becomes very resistive, right? If you want to really onboard the next million users, you can't say that, okay, this is like a huge, it is a paradigm shift, but the user doesn't have to know. And frankly, the user doesn't really care, right?
Yeah, exactly. They shouldn't need to.
Yeah, exactly. You're online. A lot of people are online, or even people, all of us are using electricity nowadays. At least the privileged ones are in several parts of the world. Then they don't necessarily understand the ins and outs of everything. But you are utilizing it because it's solving a problem for you, and that is exactly how it should be with Web3.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and we should be able to just have this conversation on Zoom and not need to know exactly everything that goes on. And imagine if it took me 25 minutes and I had to use 4 separate applications to log onto this call. That's not
Wouldn't
fun.
do it. Yeah, yeah, nobody's gonna do it.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
No one's gonna do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody has the kind of attention span anymore. Moreover, nobody has the kind of time. So it needs to be easy and it needs to be convenient, I think. So let's talk a little bit more about Zion. And, you said that, you guys have been working on it for 2 odd years and now your testnet is live, and kudos on the kind of traction that you mentioned. But would love to perhaps, if you had to say explain this to somebody who is like a layperson but does understand different chains, what makes your chain stand apart? And is it like an L2? Is it like an L1? Could you elaborate a little on that?
Absolutely. We are the first and only walletless L1. And so understandable, a big issue and one of the largest hurdles is this concept of wallets. And so once you can remove wallets and everything, putting onto these A as a smart contract account and then B on the protocol level, getting into the technicals doesn't really matter. But you observe, as anyone who's ever tried to onboard the crypto, that's the main barrier. And so you actually get a lot of things that's solved by removing all wallets. You can use crypto on any device. I was actually just on a Stairmaster earlier today at the gym, and I was interacting with this XION chain through the little interface. People are doing it from their Apple Vision Pro or their Xbox. And so being able to kind of go on any device, not having to worry about this concept of gas fees, everything's denominated in dollars. Once you're walletless, you actually expand to a level that's completely unbeknownst to the industry because obviously we're the only ones kind of doing it. But you look at kind of where our traction is and where I'd point the success of that traction to, it's that no one knows that they're interacting with crypto and it feels like just another website, as a matter of fact.
Okay, wonderful. So basically, you're making access very least resistive and easy for the end user.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me a little about the kind of applications that are being, or the use cases for this particular chain that you've seen so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always have like a small joke, which is, we've built such great tools. We built such great tools for onboarding and completely abstracting the crypto that anyone's grandmother could use the chain. But not many people's grandmothers are going to be slinging perpetuals all day, right? It's just not what it is.
Right.
So for us,
but no, it's a wonderful way of putting it. Yeah.
Thank you. But, kind of suffice to say, it's obviously extremely exciting. And, you know, as it kind of relates, they're not going to be slinging perpetuals, right? We've done just a great job at building great onboarding tools, not for people to go trade dog whiff hat token. Not to say that I don't, but that's a crypto user. That's not the user that we target. And the user that we target is this kind of everyday user, by actually saying, hey, we understand that there needs to be a reason why you use things, and we need to cross this chasm. We need to cross the chasm from this early tech adopter to this kind of mainstream user base. And I believe that the way to do that is to go to them, but then B, be able to like give them a reason to use something, not simply because it's a narrative, like crypto.
Right. Right, absolutely. I think, the way you've kind of put it gives everybody building in this space something to think about. And more power to you for being able to do this. So, whenever anybody is building like a layer one chain, it's usually said in the industry that you need like a war chest to really go about doing it and be able to penetrate and get enough traction in the market. What is your take on that? How have you been able to build like an exciting community around your chain?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that also is kind of a sign of the times as well, because I think before, when we talk about chain abstraction, the first thing that when we set out on being kind of this layer one was refusing to be isolationist. And I think in that capacity, when you don't have the network effects that come with crypto, then you need a war chest. Obviously, I think to date we've raised $36 million with a very recent $25 million Series A. But suffice to say, we're not trying to say, hey, let's steal users from Solana, steal users from Aptos. Where we kind of act, and we actually, when I say going to other chains, we're pioneering a kind of an initiative called chain abstraction, which effectively says, hey, it doesn't matter what chain you're on. We're just going to work with the products. And so we actually just had a live demo with a blockchain called Neutron yesterday, which had the most IBC channels ever created. We did this with Solana, BNB, Avalanche, Injective, Saga, and more that we've done and more to come. But, in that capacity, we need to be collaborative as we go to the future, and we can't really be competitive. And I think if you want to try to be competitive and you want to say, hey, we're going to completely reinvent the wheel and everyone needs to change all the user behaviors, then yes, I believe that you need a war chest. But I think when everyone benefits, which in my mind should be kind of the default, I think, you're playing in a different ballpark.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think if you're able to collaborate, and especially with what you're doing, like you said, you did a live demo and, you're not competing with the chains. You're just providing perhaps an additional layer, which makes it easier for the users. Obviously, there is a lot more going in the background, but for the user, it's more like an intermediary that kind of makes it easy for them to access different kind of applications in the Web3 ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, I think you have this large vision where I'm just using the internet and I'm using applications and I'm playing games and I don't have to change flows, right? I can go from YouTube to Google to TechCrunch, and I don't have to know what chain I'm on or re-up or bridge or send. We're going to get to a future, and I think that future is actually very, very soon, where we're just interacting, right? Like we're just using the tools, we're just using applications and not needing to know exactly where, what chain we're on or what interoperability solutions we're using. And I think once you look at it into that perspective of, layer one has a sour name because I think honestly, from what I remember, like bridging was not really a thing up until 2021. So like when Solana came out the gates, it was one of those things that you needed to be, you needed to redefine your industry. And I think we're at a point within composability and interoperability where that's not really the case anymore.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've come so far in terms of where we used to be now, as you mentioned, that there is so much more conversation and action around interoperability. I believe that is how, a solution like yours is possible, right? This is perhaps a little akin to wallet abstraction, but obviously on a much larger scale.
Exactly. Nailed it.
So, you guys have also had a recent, exciting development with EarnOS partnership. So can you tell us a little about that, and what are the key benefits for users and brands involved in this collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who don't know at home, EarnOS is a project that deployed on us. Very, very exciting project, I would say, which is, they take this concept of questing that's been very keen in the Web3 industry. Companies like Galaxy or Zeely, there's a lot of them. But they say, hey, we could actually take this and apply this to Web 2 and use the power of XION to effectively remove all crypto away. And so what you also find out in events like this is once you remove this kind of solutionism from crypto by removing the crypto, they answer the question of, wow, it's actually impossible to send $5 to 2 million people. You can't do that without crypto. Especially globally, that's impossible. It's literally an unsolved problem that is solved by crypto. And especially if, working with Uber growth in Japan, this is something that if Japan wants to enter, Uber wants to enter a Japanese market or any Southeast Asian market or something like that, and want to be able to distribute, direct marketing to people, so people can say, sign up for the email, watch an ad, here's $5. That's not possible, right?
Right.
And it's a win for the brands because there's so much money burned in marketing, and so going directly to the source is incredible. And then as then it's a win for the users because I'm making money by just watching advertisements.
Right. Okay. This is a very interesting use case. So what were the kind of perhaps can you share like a key metric or some sort of anecdote or a success
So
story?
I think they had like, I think they personally, I mean, they launched maybe 3 weeks ago, and I think had over 200,000 users. I think I know they have multiple $1 million in committed spend from, a bunch of these brands, and the brands they're working with are impressive. It's Uber, it's Lacoste, it's Sunglass Hut, it's the North Face. It's brands that are household names, and something like a Sunglass Hut, I believe. I don't remember the exact stat, but I think they tripled their following and then had a 5,000% increase in their engagement rate. In I think a week, which is incredible. It's incredible, and it just shows you, after that it's and this was on testnet. The money wasn't even real. This was on the XION testnet, and so when this actually becomes real money distributed, imagine that.
Yeah, that's
It's very
brilliant.
exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting especially with, as you mentioned, these are all household, very well-known brands. In every house, everybody knows of these brands, and that is super exciting. So what are your kind of strategies for expanding the ecosystem of projects on XION chain? Like how do you want to go about doing that? Obviously, one way is through these very exciting collaborations, but what are the other key strategies that you guys have in your armor?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is that, right? I think we offer, a lot of incubation and a lot of help. Whether it be working with companies who want fundraising, the idea of building an ecosystem, and you kind of see this a lot with crypto. Unfortunately, which is you get like this grant meta. But it's not really sustainable. And for those who don't understand the concept of the grant meta, I'll give you $50,000, you build on us, whatever. And it's very short-sighted, and it's and it's not sustainable. And so when we talk about something like an EarnOS or an Animation Plus, every project that we work with, I would say we act like an incubation or like an accelerator more than anything. Because I think that's what thrives the company. And once you're in this industry for 7, 8, 9, 10, however many years, you understand that everything comes in cycles. And yes, there's going to be ups, yes, there's going to be downs, but longevity is the only thing that is the main focus.
Right, absolutely. I think what you're saying in terms of, how that is very short-sighted, these grant programs and chains asking these startups to build on them. I agree. It's again, very akin to perhaps airdrops and, financially incentivizing users to utilize a certain product that, you're building.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's always going to be, you know, the the proof will be seen long, long in the future, right? And it's good
Hmm.
and bad.
Yeah. But if you're playing the long-term game, then it'll
Then it
just
doesn't
create a
matter.
short-term spike. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter,
Hmm.
and these will just create a short-term spike. So, can you tell us a little about your team? Who's behind this particular chain? Who's helped you out?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an incredible, incredible team. Our CTO built the Gravity Bridge, which is the first ever bridge from Cosmos to Ethereum.
Wow.
Our head of DevOps comes from Terra, which obviously, if anyone has seen, had the largest transfer of money in the world. As we kind of hit records on kind of on usage and block space, getting someone to help, obviously keep us afloat as we try to go on a volumetric based KPI system. Um, our engineering manager from Flow, I mean, the team is absolutely incredible. It's very small. I mean, right now it is only about 9 people. It is me, a BD person, a designer, and then everyone else is engineers. And obviously with an engineering based company, that's what you kind of come to expect. But
Yes.
it's extremely, extremely interesting. It's extremely, extremely interesting, and I love working with this team. They are some of the brightest people I know, the funniest people, and it is never a dull day. I promise you that.
Oh, brilliant. So you guys are all working out of New York, or is the team distributed?
No, team is actually completely distributed.
Okay, yeah, I think that is usually the case with all these great products that are being built. It's difficult to find all of that talent concentrated in one place.
It is. It is.
All right, wonderful. So now that we kind of know what you're building and your journey so far, I would love to know what is the next big milestone for you personally as well as professionally that you're looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to our mainnet launch. I think that's going to be the most exciting thing. Ideally coming up soon, but we have a lot of great projects coming out the gate.
Hmm.
Ready to kind of hit mainnet extremely, extremely hard with some great names like Uber, Samsung, North Face, some of them we've already kind of went over, but even more to kind of come. And it's one of those things where always it's always the starting block, right? And it's
Yeah,
whenever mainnet comes live, it's you have some teams who treat it like the end of the game, but really it's the beginning. And I think understanding that and saying, hey, this is where we're able to hit our strides. This is where we're able to, this is where we're able to actually really, really make a difference and a change and start really hyper growth and sprinting. It's exciting. It really is. And
absolutely.
I've got the best team to do it with.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So do you guys have like a timeline for your mainnet launch?
We always say soon.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I get that. That's the industry
You've been in
standard.
crypto, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I know. And
there's
no
always an
judgment there.
answer to this.
Yeah, yeah, there is no good answer there. So it's absolutely fine. And this is just for the folks who are perhaps waiting for, your token to hit the market. But
Of
it's
course,
okay.
we're gonna have people. You're gonna have like 40 wins in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. Mainnet when. So yeah,
When
I'm
mainnet, when
totally, yeah. That's gonna be there. But all right, so this is
always.
this is all wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Now just sort of zooming out a little bit and talking a little about the kind of challenges, because I'm sure uh, there are challenges dime a
Absolutely none.
dozen in this space. Really, no challenges while you've been trying to
Not a
democratize
one
Web3.
challenge. I just it's a streamlined process. Just keep walking straight and you'll get there. No, of course of course there's
Yeah.
challenges. It's always hard to change. When you have kind of dramatic shifts in an industry, it's always
Hmm.
going to be interesting. And right now, we feel like we're at this crossing the chasm moment, and
Hmm.
there's no clean connection. It is a jump, and whenever you have a jump, you always, of course, have the opportunity to fall. And
Right.
I think if we didn't have such a great team, I would be worried. But there's always going to be skeptics. There's always going to be, those those kind of going against. But I would say like challenges really is, I will say the challenge is that there's no products in this industry. And I wish there was. And you have this kind of chicken and egg problem, which effectively says, there's no users in this industry because there's no products, and there's no products because there's no users. And one of these things needs to change. Obviously, as we kind of say, we are trying to be this catalyst event by providing the users so that products have a total addressable market that's larger than the total number of MetaMask downloads. And I think once we can get to this point of actual A, differentiation, but B, A, differentiation, but B, like hyperscale, I think the wheels really start turning. And once we can kind of hit this cliff effectively, which is mainnet, right? The easier, the faster it'll be, to kind of get things through. So, I mean, to answer your question, I really like, no, all jokes aside, there are not many challenges. Because there's nothing, everything it's a green open field, and everything will be what you make of it, and you can always find a challenge in something, but you could also find solutions, and you could also find, I'll give you a very, very good example. We back in July of last year, actually, we were this was like, actually probably more like February of last year, actually. We were not really considering, the idea of having account abstraction on a protocol level didn't hit us yet.
Right.
But we did want to like make it easier for people. And so what happened was we were using an MPC provider, which for those who don't know what an MPC is, it's effectively like a multi-party way to create a wallet. It's an easier way to create a wallet so that you don't actually need to trust someone, so it's not completely centralized and still non-custodial, but still have a very seamless flow. It's like what you look at like with a Privy or something like that. The people who are trying to make wallets easier to create. That's what we were trying to do early last year. And we had opened up our testnet, and we were absolutely decimating these guys. We were taking down their network every single time. And because you need three parties, right? And you want to do it in a decentralized fashion. And I remember we're sitting there, and they're running a hackathon in New York, over a weekend, and we take their testnet down, and we ruined their hackathon. And I felt so
My
bad, but
God.
I didn't really feel that. I didn't feel that bad because, I don't, that's, that
That's a
can't be
win
our
for
problems
you.
is, hey, we have too
Yeah.
many users. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, we have too many users. But suffice to say, it really made us think, and we're like, we really hit this kind of first principles perspective. And then that rabbit hole ended up leading us down to our protocol level account abstraction. And then effectively saying, why are we using wallets at all? Like, if we can make everything a smart contract account, we actually, and that's what I say, right? You look at how we introduced ourselves. We were a walletless L1. And this was the impetus of that, right? And so you can look at something like this and say, this is a challenge, this is a problem. Or it was the greatest thing to ever happen to this company because it put us on a trajectory that we would have never imagined.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful way of putting it. And it's just about perspective. And I think this is good advice for business as well as life. That, at times your lowest moments and, the kind of problems that do arise, they give you that opportunity perhaps for growth and to get where you were perhaps always meant to be.
Exactly. And it's also how you survive in this
Yeah.
crazy markets.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, you need that kind of perspective and that gung-ho attitude to survive and to live to see another day. So, yeah, I
Exactly.
totally agree with you. So now, again, I would like to perhaps double down a little bit on the user adoption question. Like, I would love to know what is your approach to ensure, like, obviously your USP is to make crypto perhaps disappear, but how are you reaching out to these end users? We can educating them about yourself and your platform.
Well, we don't really need to educate the end user too much, right? Like, I think you'll always get the crypto power user, which will, be the kind of the educator, and the developers will be the educator.
Right.
But I don't think I don't think it's necessary anymore because we don't have wallets, because we don't we don't have like any of the barriers to entry. We don't actually need to educate users, right? And I think this is a flawed perspective of the industry, which is the way to reach users is to educate them and make education better. It's like, no, the way to get users is to make it so that they don't need to be educated and they can just use something.
Right.
And, you know, as it relates to that, I recommend you trying, you know, anyone at home as well. You can use your mobile phone and try Earn OS or any other of the products. And you won't know that you're interacting with crypto for 1 second. You don't need to be
Right.
educated. I don't need to, you know, you don't need to do a Coinbase learn and earn program to understand how to onboard, because, you know, everything's denominated in dollars. You're able to use credit card and debit card for most of it and able to withdraw into money. So the idea really is to build an ecosystem of projects that don't require that don't require you know, that really just don't require education.
Right. Again, this is a wonderful perspective, I think, because we kind of, as builders, I have talked a lot about it, that, you know, there is usually a learning curve, and maybe, obviously, you know, you need to make the experience better, but in the meantime, perhaps you need to educate the end user so that more people understand this. So this is a very different, but I think a perspective that I would totally concur with, that, you know, you need to make it so easy that nobody needs to be educated. So let me perhaps reframe my question. You mentioned that, you know, you'll get the crypto power users and the developers, and they would kind of be able to become that mechanism via which users kind of flock to you. So how are you reaching out to these guys and building your initial system of early adopters?
A lot of it, I mean, there's been about a year of this, and so it's been about a year of this, I would say. So what was I gonna say? I would say originally, especially when we were in the bear market, a lot of the developers kind of came from like a resignment in a way of, wow, I've built a product, or I want to build a product, and there's 3 users in this industry, and because no one's here, and I need to increase my total addressable market. So that was really like the impetus of most of these projects. And then you have something like an Earn OS, which was actually quite organic. They just cold reached out to us. Because of just the content that we put out. And, you know, I think it was our partnership with Circle for USDC, and they're saying, you know, hey, we actually need this. You know, and I think there is a quite nice organic aspect to the growth of the industry, especially when you see the projects and you see the brands, you know, and you see the potential. You know, but of course we have a community of over a million, you know, that is extremely strong. I think we have like 700,000 followers on Twitter, 600,000 in the Discord. You know, really active community that's really exciting. You know, and of course, just word of mouth is always going to be strong. And you know what, we're not even technically alive yet, and we're seeing so much growth, and so it's extremely exciting, and we're more than excited to then just hit mainnet.
Right, yeah. Well, this is wonderful. Like I mentioned before, kudos on the kind of traction you have seen. Now, you know, I would love to, because you've not covered that so far, and it just struck me that, you know, we haven't really talked about chain abstraction. Without going perhaps too technical, you know, would you like to shed some light on that for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we touched on it a little bit with like the Solana and the AVAX, you know, kind of partnership and things that we had there, or I guess integration we had there, I should say.
But
You know,
if you had to say, explain how it kind of works to you know, a user or just a builder, how would you
sure.
do that? Yeah.
So since everything's a smart contract, since everything's a smart contract on Zion, we can have a smart contract deploy via, you know, whether it's any bridging. If anyone's not familiar with bridging, I won't go into the specific names. For those of you who are familiar, whether it's IBC or Hyperlane or Union, you know, utilizing some of these interoperability solutions to then deploy a smart contract on a neighboring chain. And so we have a smart contract on, let's say, Zion, and a smart contract on, say, Solana. And they act as mirrors to each other, right? So,
Right.
and they can communicate with each other, right? It's general message passaging. And so, but with that being said, it's now this way of being able to communicate. And since we don't need a wallet, we actually don't need to we don't need to be, wallet specific in signing, because at most chains have a different signature schema, which is one of the main reasons why it's very difficult to go cross chain. And so you're effectively within the usage, or however you want to say it, using a product on Solana without even knowing it, because we act like this kind of mirror. Now take that and then say, okay, well, we have one on Solana, we have a smart contract on Solana, we have one on Avalanche, we have one on Base, and now you've created this kind of omni-chain environment where every chain is connected via these smart contracts, and all of them can communicate with each other extremely seamlessly because they're a smart contract, and you get this interesting network effects of products being able to say, transactions, users, TVL, and all of these things can flow very seamlessly without having to really, the only thing that you really have to probably change is the website handle.
Right, I think that's a wonderful way of putting it. It's very straightforward in the way you've explained it, that the mirror and, because there is no wallet, the kind of that kind of complexity of getting the right schema, that kind of goes away. And I think for perhaps people who are listening in, this will give them the right level of curiosity to look into this further, because again, very exciting technology. And I love how we've, come such a long way from no smart contracts to smart contracts to several chains, and now these chains, talking to each other and effectively growing the ecosystem together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful to see, genuinely.
Yeah,
It's exciting as well.
it's very exciting. So now, as a leader in Web3, and now I'm completely zooming out because we are running out of time, even though I'm enjoying this conversation a lot. But perhaps the last 3 questions or 2 questions, I would love to know your perspective as somebody who's been in this space for some time. What kind of personal principles or philosophies guide your own work, and what keeps you in Web3, despite all, the kind of small or niggling or bigger obstacles that you've seen in your journey?
It's a very good question, actually. And I think what keeps me in Web3 is that I think there's always a group of people that are trying to do good. And I think, like, when I always try, like, I mean, I normally just say, just don't be a dick. That's always my that's just for everyone that I meet, that is what it is. I apologize for cursing, of course, but there's there's so much going on. There's so much good being done, but you're in an industry that can always, always, always be grifted, right? Once you involve a financial aspect into something, it's hard. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Like, people
Yeah.
have numbers. There will always be nefarious players, but just understanding the long term, and understanding where we're going and where we want to be, it's much more powerful than anything, really. And I think being able to kind of see through all of that is important, and it's hard to do that on your first cycle, but it's not all lost.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's always, like, I think, when a conversation takes a turn in this direction, I usually go back to what I had heard Andrew Antonopoulos say in one of his videos, and perhaps it was in the book Internet of Money. It said that, all new industries kind of see the bad elements arrive as well, just when it's taking off. But we should just remember that there is more good folks than them. There are more solution builders than the problem creators, and you should take solace in the fact.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, kind of time and time again, you begin to see this more and more,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Yeah.
It's nice. It's life affirming as well. I think it gives you hope that,
Yeah.
there's more good in the
It
world.
does give you hope.
Yeah, and there are good people, and people are trying to do good, and not everybody is perhaps coming from a place of malice, and that is very life affirming.
Yeah. No, exactly. Genuinely, exactly.
So now, just to, this is something that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and I would love to ask you as well. If you had to, give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs or developers, or even just users who are perhaps, sitting on the fence about getting in the Web3 space, just, checking out the next dApp or something like that, what would be your advice to them for them to truly start living on blockchain?
For users, you won't have to do anything.
Hmm.
You'll you'll be interacting with blockchain and you won't even know it. And that's okay. It's great. Um, for people who want to start building, I would say ask yourself why.
Right.
And I understand that you're here for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons, naturally.
Hmm.
Which is it's easier said than done, I will say.
Hmm.
It's very easy to get caught up in everything that goes on. It's very easy to get caught up in the money, the big numbers, some of the people and the lifestyles, but keep your head down. Yeah, and I don't know. Don't also, if I would have really be honest here, maybe stay in your own job. Like you don't have to quit for crypto. It's a lot of people I know, and the odds aren't great. So, and it sucks. You genuinely got to be crazy. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's not for
probably the
everyone.
advice.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't
it's
have
not
to.
for everyone. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. Not everything has to be built in Web3. Not everybody has to really make that leap and come on to and join the cult, as we've put.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's not for everyone. But if you are really going to be building in this space, then I think in this cycle and in the past two cycles, I think a lot of people have given very similar suggestions that you really need to ask yourself why are you doing this for the right reasons. Do you really like the technology, or are you here just for
Hmm.
the noise and the trills and banners that come kind of with it? And if
Yeah,
your answer is a resounding yes, that you really like the
really care.
ethos, yeah,
Yeah,
you really care, and you're curious and you want to build in the space because you like the technology, then stay.
then
And
great.
yeah, but there's always a caveat. Not everything has to be built with keeping
Hmm.
Web3 in mind.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's just it's same with AI. Like it's always these are narratives sometimes, and a
Yeah,
lot of a lot of the times it's just it's going to be a narrative. And you can see this a lot, but unfortunately, not everything needs to be on chain either. Like,
yeah. No, that's very true. That kind of makes me a little curious about your opinion about this. And this is something I've been recently started asking guests on the show. What is your take on all of these AI tokens? Do you have a take? Do you have an opinion there?
yeah, my mama said if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So
That kind of
I'll
says
leave it at
everything.
that. I'll leave it
Yeah.
at that.
That kind of says everything. But yeah, I think yeah, I get what you're saying, and I feel at least I'll be honest about my opinion. I think that there is a lot of noise, and
Hmm.
I haven't really seen a very good use case so far of these AI
Yeah,
tokens. I'm sure that there might be, NFT. I used to have a very weird opinion of NFTs as well initially, like with just the CryptoKitties aspect, and I didn't understand digital collectibles at all. But
hmm
the technology itself, I think, has evolved so much, right? There are so many use cases now. There's been no particular product market fit, I think, even till date, but it's a dynamic growing industry and the technology can be used to build really wonderful solutions. So I think even though I don't have a very flattering opinion of these AI tokens currently, but I'm sure that, that we might see a day when there is a particular use case that actually makes sense and
yeah,
makes life easy for
exactly.
people.
Hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. All right, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much, Anthony, for making the time to speak to me. Before we wrap this up, any last thoughts, anything that you would like to share to our listeners, and how to perhaps get involved with Zion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Obviously, it's a genuine pleasure, and this is a great conversation, so I really appreciate it. I think it actually kind of relates to getting involved with Zion. If you're a user, you'll be using it someday, and hopefully you won't even know it.
Hmm.
But for others, right? Like it is, please come to the Discord, come to the Twitter. We have so much exciting stuff going on. It's not even funny. And I think that, sentiment may be low right now also just kind of from a more macro level, but I think we're at one of the most exciting inflection points that we're going to see in a very long time. And reminds me kind of at like the come off of DeFi summer, which is really, really exciting.
Right. Yeah. No, it's an exciting time to be in this space. And I think with solutions like yours, things are just going to get better and better.
Yep. Thank you.
So
I hope so.
I would, yeah, no, I'm absolutely positive. I'm very, very bullish on especially solutions like yours when, I think this is something that I've always said that, you need to, your solution needs to work in a way that the user doesn't even know that it's utilizing blockchain technology because it doesn't matter to the user. And that is not something that's relevant. And you are doing exactly that. So I have
Thank you.
only good wishes for you. And thank you so much once again for making the time to speak to me.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.